Hello and welcome to Writer. I am your host, Kat Filer, also known as KJ Filer, author of Shadowrunner. Today, my guest is Reagan Rothe, creator and owner of Black Rose Writing, and we are going to learn what led him to establish Black Rose as an independent publishing house that strongly believes in developing a personal relationship with our authors, and I can certainly attest to that. On the website, it says you are known by few as TikTok, part human, part robot, Dark Souls legend, can still dunk, can't hit a draw, relishes sending emails at 3 a.m. That's what your bio says. Reagan, it's great to have you. I'm so glad that you were able to join me. Maybe you could shed some light on that.
Yes, yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we can pick it apart. Um, the TikTok is because I have a prosthetic valve that's the part human, part robot. Um, and I've had 3 open heart surgeries. Uh, but there's not a lot of layers, I don't think, between my prosthetic and exterior, and so I do have a loud ticker. And yeah, we've had a few uh funny occurrences where like one of my nieces kept looking around and like searching for stuff, and this was like at a loud restaurant and like a pizza place, and looking around trying to figure out, she thought someone had like a watch or something that was going off. And then eventually, and we were like, man, you've got really good ears in this restaurant. um but yeah, it's very comforting for my wife. Obviously, she wants to hear it at all times.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. The can still dunk probably needs to be modified,
Okay.
but I can kind of go with the when we wrote it, it was we I thought it was probably true. Um, but I can give you like the lawyer answer of, I haven't attempted since it's been written, so technically I haven't really proven that I can't.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Up here.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, that gives you some of the input on the bio there.
Okay. And the sending emails at 3 a.m. I've seen that. So, and
Yeah, I've
actually,
got
if you have children, that makes so much sense anyway.
yeah, I've gotten better at sleeping, and so they're more 4 and 5 a.m. now. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's start with some questions about the publishing industry. What led you to start a publishing company?
Yeah, so I was published through a couple different publishers, and through my experiences with them, I just kind of took pieces of that, and I really enjoyed, the experience, and wanted to, um, take what I felt were positives, and then also, what were negatives, and turn those into something, more personable, a little more direct and transparent. That's something we've always tried to work on, and faster communication, and then really, I didn't know how far we were going to get in terms of marketing our books and things like that, but the goal was to work hard for authors in the very beginning. And so I started Black Rose Writing, um, basically just as a company that was there to help authors and as a resource, and wasn't sure whether we were going to be, just help with editing, like agency, publisher. And then as I gained experience and learned, that publishing is what we wanted to do, and then obviously the rest were all a conflict of interest. um, then we basically became, full-time, did part-time publishing first, and then was able to take that data and start doing publishing full-time in 2009, and we've grown in terms of royalties every year since.
How many books do you put out a year?
So I want to say the last three plus years, we've been doing about about 210 plus books a year. But for 2024, we are going to cut that down to about 150, 160. And we're super staffed. Everyone's super excited about that in terms of workload. The goal is, because our backlist, we feel, is so strong, and our ability to market new titles, and try to just get back more to that personable, and where you're not getting, we don't want an author to ever feel like they're getting lost in the mix. And the 3 books is going to allow us to to spend a little more time in making sure all those books, not only in the creation process,
Mm.
get the attention they deserve, but also from a marketing and release standpoint.
Yeah, and I was not in the beginning real sure about, and I honestly went to you guys. I'm not gonna lie. I went to you guys because I had an agent, two agents actually, and all they did was hold on to my book, and it went nowhere. And I'm not saying that happens to everyone, but it was my experience. And at some point, I knew a couple of authors that were with you when they were just deliriously happy. And I thought, well, what can it hurt? And I've been very impressed with the personal attention that I've gotten. And I don't mean like hand holding. I mean, like I send in a realistic question or I'm working on something and I get an answer back. And almost always, I get assigned a person, so I know who I'm talking to, I know who's responsible for that, and I think that's very admirable. Um, that and I've heard from other people who are a little bit jealous of the publicity and stuff, the PR that you guys are doing, especially as a small publishing house. I'm not going to tell you who, but I just spoke with an author who said, "Yeah, I'm really sorry that I didn't even try, and I probably will in the future." So, because he knows some of us and he's very impressed. So,
Well, that's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've we try hard on that aspect in terms of marketing and just being able to be there for our authors, quickly. Um, and yeah, that's what we want to go back to when we reduce our amount of books we're publishing, to be able to give them, all more attention as well.
yeah, you've got some serious talent in your staff. How did you staff up?
Yeah, I've most of them, well, actually all of our staff were friends first.
Okay.
That we developed relationships, the trust and like knowing the character and where they would be good fits. And we went from there. Like it just really worked out well. David King, who is our design lead, he timing is everything. It was he worked with game software, designing 3D models and making characters for games like Call of Duty, stuff like that. And his company shut down for whatever reason, and Dave was the same time. I reached out. I don't even know if we had a phone call. I can't remember if he said that the company had shut down and that he was going to have to do something else, or if I had talked to him first. But that's when I was looking to finally expand and needed help. I was doing pretty much everything with a few freelance help, and Dave was the first full-time hire that he came on as like, look, you can, I mean, if you're making 3D models, I mean, and drawing, hand painting, I'm like, you can do some book covers, and he was always a really good artist and everything. So I'm like, you can do book covers. And so I helped him, kind of trained him, and he started doing the book design on all the formatting and all that. So that freed up that for me. And then every step as I needed to delegate, we've kind of handpicked and pulled Justin Weeks, Chris Miller, and then now Minna, um, working, in a larger role with Black Rose Writing, besides being obviously always at a really good advisory role, which any good partner is. Um, but yeah, just putting them in places. I feel like I've done a really good job, maybe fortunate or lucky, but understanding what people's strengths are, and putting them in a spot where they would have the most chance to climb.
Yeah, and really good follow through on stuff too. I have been very pleased with that myself. So yeah, and by the way, I've gotten an awful lot of compliments on my book cover, which was entirely Dave. I sent him some ideas and it was like he plucked it right out of my brain and put it on the front of a book. It was great. I was
That's
pretty
awesome.
convinced he had read it. So,
That's what I like to hear.
yeah. So, what advice would you have for an author who's working on their very first manuscript?
In terms of if they're just like trying to write their first book, get it complete. I think it's just keep writing. I mean, that's the simplest advice. But until you finish, you've got to understand that it's gonna need to be edited. At some stage, there's
Mhm.
gonna need to be editing, rewriting, checking to see if there's any flaws. So, I think one of the strengths I don't have as a writer, is to be able to just let it flow and worry about that later. And I wish I could, but I'm more of a try to write perfect sentences as I write, and it really makes it slow and tedious. And it causes probably writer's block more often, which is why I don't write, as consistently. But yeah, if you're working on your first, I think it's just get it all there, and then you can always go back and it's not set in stone. It's not a final version. And then from a submission standpoint, as you talked about with agents, and not all agents, not all, everything, but we get a lot of authors that have great projects, um, and we'll offer a contract and they'll say, well, I want to go back and change this, and I'm just not ready yet. I might contact you, in 6 months or a year, and I'm always thinking like books are pretty timeless,
Yeah.
unless it's just really, maybe a thriller that takes place, uh, where fans want, it doesn't have cell phones, and people want cell phones. And but even then, it can still, people like to go back and read things, but most books are pretty timeless. And a manuscript just sitting on your shelf or on your computer, it doesn't sell any books, and it doesn't, no one, you're not gaining any publicity. And so, it's not a one and done deal. Like if you release it in the first 2 weeks, it doesn't sell thousands of copies, it's a bust, and you might as well just throw it away. That's not how it works. We've had authors that have had, some very small royalties, maybe their first year when they released it. Um, Tracy Ball's a great example. Her book, we sold copies when it released, family, friends. We hit a few more people. And then it went several years with, getting almost, 0 to maybe $3 royalties. And then about year 6 or 7, she made more royalties than she's ever made on any book.
Yeah.
And we had some really big years just because we hit the right Amazon ads that they just struck, and she started making some really good royalties. And so it's never, I think it's neat that you don't have to, just expect it to do well immediately, or else there's no chance.
Right. Well, but the other thing too, I think is that what a lot of beginning writers don't understand is the whole editing thing. It is on you, and there's a lot of ways of doing that. And one of them is to get into a critique group, which is great. And I was just talking to an author friend about this. You get two kinds of critiques from people in critique groups. I happen to know a lot of authors, and authors help you understand what's saleable and what's not. And then, but the beta readers who have I've just been with forever because I've been a beta reader. And then I had a couple of people that I was working for where they actually would set us up online where we could all talk about the book together, which turned out to be a really good thing for the author and us. And then we formed a little community, and those of us who were writing had built-in beta readers. That was great. And he didn't mind. It wasn't like we were stealing from him or anything. But anyway, I think a lot of beginning writers don't understand the writing process that way, that the editing is on you, however you do that. And they think that they're just going to turn it in and it's magically going to be a book overnight. So yeah, I was prepared to hire an agent again. I'm sorry, an editor again when I submitted with you guys. So yeah, agent or no agent then. How do you feel about that?
I mean, we're fine either way. The only, my only frustrating thing is occasionally you get agents that know less than the author. And so that's a little frustrating sometimes, that they're basically, um, don't really have a strong knowledge of the industry, and they're not going to, they're trying to sell the book, or they're trying to get the author the deal, but they're not going to be there once, if the contract gets in place, that they've kind of, they've packed their bags.
Yeah,
So they're not helping with the marketing. They're not really helping push the author. And from our end, it's like, well, now the author, uh, is forfeiting even more royalties to someone who, yeah, they got him a book deal, but a lot of authors could do that themselves.
yeah, yeah. So as a publisher, what would you like to go back in time and tell your beginning self?
Oh yeah, maybe that's one of the things, and it just popped in my head for a lot of the promotions that we do now, and they were really, really, some of them were super effective, and a lot of the marketing strategies, such as optimizing book keywords, things like that, they were super effective, 5 to 10 years ago when Kindle just started and Amazon just kind of started really blowing up with the books. And we were in some of that. We were in a lot of it where it was really just effective, and you could get organic sales just from changing your keywords. I mean, just going in and changing, having better keywords, and all of a sudden it's like a book that was selling, 0 copies was now selling 1 or 2 a day, and with no marketing, no paid marketing, and things like that. And it would be neat to go back and really be able to optimize your books and do these promotions, um, when it was really hot, or like when it was first starting. Because now, you still get results, but the big, just monster results and the instant, um, results are not there because it is so much more competitive, and without, there's really no more organic, hardly, or I mean there is, but the organic sales on Amazon, um, are generated because of ads
Yeah.
after that. There's really no more. If you're not advertising on Amazon or Facebook and have generated a lot of word of mouth, it's very, very hard to sell a book, just by someone searching and being like, oh, look, that's Kat's book. I want to read it. It's more because you're spending on Amazon, Facebook, BookBub, whatever, paid ads, word of mouth, ebook promos, and all that's going to generate the higher ranking. And then people, will see it, and you'll get the organic sales. But without that first, it's very difficult. And so, hopefully one day it'll ease up a little on us, and we can, our promos will be a little stronger again.
Does a series help or not?
A good series does, yes. A bad series, where you're not getting read through, not so much, because then you feel like you should be able to push book one and use different tactics aggressively. But if only 20% are making it to book two, then usually end up just spending a lot of money, and you'd be better off just having, a standalone good book. But series that do have read through, can definitely help. If you have a, vampire romance that's hitting all the right tropes, and it's really good, and people are talking about it on TikTok and everywhere, and you got 25 books deep, then yeah, you can outmarket the other guys because you can pay more per click. You can jack the bids up, and you'll be able to, you're going to lose money on book one and two, but as people start pounding through that series, you're going to drive the little guy out.
So as an author then, if you've got a book written and you turn it in and now you guys are running with it, do we check with you to see whether we should pursue the second one or not?
I would, yeah, I don't know if check's the right word. I would, any publisher, I'm always excited when authors, working on book two. Um, the series are, for the most part, are always going to be a little stronger, than standalone for new authors. Until you've built a really good, track record of readers. And for example, even Joe Seipel, who's our biggest author, they read, people will read the Five Wishes, and then the sequel, Final Wish. They'll read those almost. I mean, the read through is incredibly high. Um, but then our daily sales for his other books are they're better than most of our authors. Like, they're still good, but they're nowhere near those numbers. And so you're still thinking, well, it's still, the same author, and I like to read same authors. Like, unless it's just a totally different genre, I pretty much will read all books by an author, especially if it's a new person. I'm like, I've first been introduced to them, and I read a book, and it's like, man, this was great. Do they have other books? And it's like, oh, they got 8. And I'll usually, unless, like you said, let's just they dabbled in something that's completely different, then I'll usually try to read all of them. But but I don't think all readers, work through that way as much. So I do think this series is the best route, unless book one just does really poorly, and not even from a sales standpoint, but from a review. If you're just
Mm.
constantly getting feedback that something doesn't work, or if it's got a 3.4 on Amazon, it's really hard to overcome that.
So is there a genre where series works best or not? Is it just general?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I would say that the bigger ones, obviously, why, obvious, what you write in is a good series. But yeah, the romance, thriller, mystery, all of those, being able to tie those books on, I think, readers get excited about that. It's fun, especially when you come in on book one and there's already five out, and so you're not going to be waiting. You can read one after the other.
Yeah. Some of the feedback that I got, and I'm really shocked that this is YA. It wasn't what I intended to write. I thought it was way dark, but apparently kids these days read dark stuff. So that's interesting. But when I first came out, I didn't think it was YA. And then when I realized it was YA, I thought, well, this is awesome because they find you and then they hang on. They love your characters and they wait for the next one and they really get invested. So that's good. So I'd like to switch gears for a second and talk about you as an author, because I just recently found out that you have written things. So, and apparently quite a range.
Yeah, which is good and bad. I mean, it's I thought it was good whenever I went to more book signings and book festivals early on, and we tried to make a lot of those appearances, and I would sign books before we had more signing authors, besides me. And yeah, it's fun because you're like, oh, I can catch a bunch of different readers. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, if someone reads their your baseball book, they're not necessarily want to read like your children's book or your mystery romance or your dark fantasy, which is, I've written all of those. So, yeah, so it makes it where it's like, well, that reader's going to read one, but they're not going to read anything else by me. So, yeah, so good or bad. I think my biggest, thing I had to come to terms with is I've always been pretty good at being the thick-skinned author, no issues there. But learning the marketing from an author and a publisher standpoint of we tell people it's the same why certain jobs make less money than other jobs. Why celebrities make more money. People that are just like like a viral person makes way more money than the best English teacher.
Yeah.
And it's because it's just it's what happens in uh in a capitalist world, and where the market basically dictates where the money goes. And it took me, and I always had to come to terms with that, because it took me 10 years, from the first line to put the words "the end" on my baseball novel. It was a 10-year process. um, and in a perfect world, the world that I would invent, that book would be $99 and people would want to pay that instantly.
Yeah.
uh, because I wrote my horror children's story. I like to teach children. I wrote that on like a Saturday afternoon, and I sell more copies and made more money off that book than my 10-year book. And so it's like, man, why did I ever write that 10-year? It doesn't make any sense.
It has to be a labor of love, I think, with writing. My husband and I are in two fields, one each, that you're never going to be, well, probably never going to be wealthy. I'm doing this and I made way more money as a publicist than I'm making as an author. And I'm sure that trend is going to continue, but I'm retired, so we're good. But but I mean, you never know. But my husband is an architect, and that was 6 years of school, and he would have made more money if he'd have become a contractor, and that would have been, get a license. So,
Yes.
but he wanted to be an architect and he's enjoyed his job, and I enjoy writing. And so, there has to be some heart in that. So, and with that in mind, what is the project, book, or publishing or anything that you've had the most fun doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the children's horror story, just because I wrote it for my kids. Was the plan. And you know um uh dedicated it to Lena, my daughter, who's now 9. I think I've did it when she was like, 2 years old, 1 or 2, or at least that's when we started reading it a lot. Um, and it was just really fun to the story was fun. And there's not a lot of, I always thought, man, there's not enough, like the R.L. Steins, but earlier.
Yeah.
I was like, there's not enough children's scary stuff, and so I was like, I'm gonna make it where you can read it scary and it's supposed to be creepy, but it's not. There's nothing in it that's really inappropriate or that's gonna scar a child.
Yeah.
Um, and the parents saved the day concept. And so, I think writing that and then working with the illustrator was Drew Rose, who had done some other Black Rose writing books, children's books, and working with him to bring that to life and everything. It's always been fun. So that's my most fun book to actually push when we go to book events. The other ones are like, if someone wants to talk and wants to buy one, that's great. I'll talk to them about it. But the children's book is the one where I'm really proud of that one.
Yeah. The artistry in your hires shows a lot in the catalog, because one of the things that I had looked at somebody else, I'm tell you, and I'm not going to say who it is, and what I didn't like was all of the covers all look like they were done by the same team. And yours is not just different from genre to genre, but it almost looks like you've got a whole team of people working for you. It does not look like, you know, it's very varied, and I was very surprised at the differences in the catalogs. It looks like a much bigger situation, so that's really great. With
Thank you.
but
Yeah, we work hard on keeping those trying to make sure the cover matches the genre. I very much feel that the cover should when you pick up a front cover one way or another, or see a front cover, you should know what you're going to read pretty quickly. And if it's a cover that doesn't portray that, then the title or subtitle has to do it, big and bold. It's got to do it quickly.
yeah, yeah. So as a publisher or an author, what's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
Oh, I think as a publisher, I think it's just anytime an author is like yourself, just anytime an author is appreciative of the work that we're doing. Because I know, and like you said, we don't ever want to name names, but you know how I know how hard I work for authors and care about their projects and the results. And I know our staff, does, feels the same way. And, there's always, the few authors that it doesn't matter. Like I could sell 1 million copies today. And you feel like that if you told them that, they'd just be like, okay, well, that's what I expected. Like, when are we going to get to 5 million? And so it's the ones, I think it's the authors that really do understand the industry and how difficult it is sometimes to land some of the exclusive promotions or have those big sales days. And whenever we hit those numbers or do some of those things, they're very appreciative and just overwhelmed by that, even if it's mild success.
Yeah,
um, One of the examples I always use is, authors will want to do, say like a book bub deal. Maybe it's a new release for like you just had one with Shadowrunner.
yeah,
And authors will be, we've had a lot of authors that are like, man, those results just sound very disappointing. And it's like, you're a first time author.
mhm,
You had, uh, whatever pre-orders, you've had all this chance and now you've got a promotion where your book maybe at a discounted price, maybe it sold 60 copies in one day. And they're like, man, that those numbers, it just seems really disappointing. And it's like, well, I'm looking at, from my perspective, I'm looking at, look, we've sold, the max we've sold is 1 or 2 copies in a day. You had like 10 pre-orders or less. And so I'm looking at all these things and it's like, you just sold,
yeah,
60 times
mhm,
the amount of books you've ever sold in one day, 30 times the amount of books. And so I'm saying, like, yeah, we could have, done better numbers and stuff, but this is your first book. This is the first big promo. And it's like, let's, we can see if we can find some way to beat that later. But I mean, you just did a record-breaking day, by far. And if we could do that every day, your book would be a bestseller, and be ranked pretty high in the rankings. So it's, those are the type of things that from our end, we're looking at them, I think, from a different, different expectation.
I think possibly my experience as a publicist prepared me for being an author, because one of the reasons I've always been writing. I've got all kinds of manuscripts in the drawer, but I watched other people go through this and I thought, what do I want to put myself? I just write it for myself and stick it in the drawer, And then, so when it came time to actually publish, I had an idea of what it would actually be like. It's actually been way easier and way better. So there's a compliment for you.
Great.
But you're talking about thick skin. Yeah, I was excited. I even got a contract. I was just, it's not going to happen. It's not. And I was already networked, so that worked really well for me too. And I think that's important. Is authors don't realize that the thing doesn't end with turning in the manuscript. That's the beginning. Now you have to get the word out there. You have to help your publisher. Okay. And I don't care who you're with. That has to happen. So, and I see
Have you seen your orange banner? I just was pulling up your
I
book just to
did.
check.
I
You
didn't.
gotta.
And one of my friends PM'd me and said, "Have you seen this?" And I had not.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I don't want to, your reviews. I don't want to put any, bad karma on them right now. But you're strong out of the gate. So,
I'm pretty excited. It's definitely not what I was expecting. This is all kinds of dream for me, so I'm really happy right now. And I see you were going to conferences. Where are you going to be next, and how can people find you? Because you really give good lectures.
thank you. Yeah, I will be at 20 Books, which
Oh,
is in
you're
November,
kidding. Oh, I'll see you
in
there.
Vegas. So I
Yeah.
will be there. It'll be my first time going there.
Okay.
Uh, and I will be able to network and meet a few people that I've emailed for many years. So that'll be fun. And then any of our authors that are going to be out there, obviously, I'd be happy to say hi. But I'm going to make it a quick trip. I'm not going to be. I think I'm only going to be there for like one full day and maybe a couple half days. But quick trip just to get a feel for it. And I think that would be my next stop. Or is that's in November? So I think before that, in October or early November, we'll be at the Texas Book Festival in Austin.
Okay.
And we'll have some authors signing there this year as well.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
but
So, well, Reagan, it's really been nice to talk to you. And for the audience, I will be putting all the links to Black Rose. I don't know about you as an author. If you provide that, I can put that up. But I will put all your media and how to find the books and stuff like that in the
that's
links
perfect.
below. Yeah. So it was really good to meet you before, and it was really good to talk to you today. And I am very grateful, and I hope other people coming into this industry give you guys a try, and because they'll be very happy. So, all
Thank
right.
you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Same. Bye.